So my name is Nadav Bigelman. I'm a member in Breaking the Silence. Breaking the Silence is an organization of veterans all served in the occupied areas in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip from 2000 until 2012. We are now 850 members. To be a member in Breaking the Silence means that you served in the army, served in the occupied areas from 2000 until now. It means also that you gave a testimony. You gave your stories, you told your stories to another member of Breaking the Silence about what you did as a soldier in those areas, in the occupied areas.
That means the main street, the market of the city, the center of the city is closed. Palestinians, they can't walk on that street and they can't drive their car. And of course, they can't open the shops on that street.
4 years old. I'm a member in Breaking the Silence for about 2 years now. To be a member, like I told you just a minute ago, to be a member in Breaking the Silence means that you served in the army, the occupied areas, either the Gaza Strip or the West Bank from 2000. After you finished your military service, you gave a testimony to another member of Breaking the Silence, and then you became a member. We are now 850 members in Breaking the Silence, men and women, all served in these areas. These are the areas, the occupied areas, that we are going to talk about in this exhibition. Our main goal as an organization is to increase the inner debate of the Israel society, of course the international community as well. This is the reason that we are here, about the moral consequences of occupation. Israel controls for 45 years, now 4 million people who control the Palestinian society, and we as soldiers that were sent to the army in Israel at the age of 18, 19, you go to the army, it's a mandatory service. You don't get to choose where you're going to serve. We were sent by the same society that now we are telling them, you sent us, and you need to open your eyes and to take that responsibility for the things that we have done, for that we as a society is doing. I served from 2007 until 2010. About 5-6 months I served in Hebron in 2008. A few words about Hebron. A lot of the pictures we're going to see here is from Hebron. The second largest Palestinian city in the West Bank, 180,000 Palestinians live there. It's also the only city that has a settlement and Israeli settlers that lives inside the city. 800 settlers that live inside of a Palestinian city. For those 800 people, there are about 500, 600 security forces to protect them. We have border police there, we have police, and we have the army, soldiers. I was one of the soldiers that were there. This exhibition, about 60 pictures, all taken by soldiers. And they took those pictures during their military service, not in a purpose that those pictures will be in 2012 in a gallery in Berlin, or in a museum, or in the newspaper. They took these pictures for a memory, for themselves. And they are the same people that started Breaking the Silence once they finished the army in 2004. It was pretty much the same exhibition. So most of the pictures are from 2004, 2002, 2003 Hebron, but not all of them. What I'll try to show in this exhibition, what we're trying to show through these pictures and through the testimonies, is to understand the mindset of a soldier. Once you understand the mind of a soldier that is in an occupation situation, we can understand a bit better how occupation works. Because I did occupation when I was a soldier. I controlled people's lives, Palestinians' lives. I decided if someone can or cannot go to school today, or if I will arrest someone at night, or if I won't arrest someone at night. And we as soldiers that were sent to these areas, we are now obligated to tell the truth about what's going on there, to the same people that sent us. I grew up in Jerusalem, here, in a leftist house, to a leftist family, and I was always against the occupation, but there was one problem. I didn't know where the occupation is. And at the age of 19, the first time I saw the West Bank, I saw the occupation, I got to Hebron, the first place I was stationed. I realized that the occupation is not the war in Afghanistan, thousands of kilometers away from home. It's 35 minutes drive from my house, because that's how long it takes from Hebron to Jerusalem. We won't go through all the pictures, we'll go through most of them. If you'll have questions, I think it will be best to keep it for the end, after we'll finish. Let's begin, okay? So those pictures are the first. The first picture I want to talk about is this picture. A poster that was put by settlers in Hebron calling soldiers to refuse any order to evacuate illegal outposts. I'll translate. It says, soldier, commander needs to distinguish between good and bad, good and evil. And the first time you see it, or when we see it now, it makes sense. It's good. A soldier, I was sent at the age of 19 to protect 800 people, so I have to distinguish between what's good and what's bad. The problem is that at the age of 19, when you're in occupation, good and bad becomes blurred and fades out during the time. And if me and my friends had lines and limits and moral limits that we told ourselves that we will never cross, you see yourself after a week or two or a month crossing these lines. This picture is a good example for it. Probably the most regular thing you will see in Hebron. For us, it's very strange. What's going on here? It's a soldier randomly checking a Palestinian in the street. The middle of the day, he hasn't done anything, he's not suspected in anything, but he checks him. Sorry. You can check him with an ID. His ID, can check his badge, he can check him physically. This time he checks him with a metal detector. And I've done dozens of checks like this. And the first time when I did it, I never assumed that I can check, or I will check someone that can be the age of my grandfather. So the first time you do it, you're a bit scared. And you're even embarrassed, and technically you don't really know how you are supposed to check a person. But then you do it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. After 2 days, you did it 20 times, and then you got used to it. Without noticing, you got used to it, and it's the most regular thing to do. I never thought about myself that I would do stuff like this, but after 2 weeks in Hebron, this used to be my everyday life. And this is exactly what we were saying in Breaking the Silence. I was the good soldier. I didn't humiliate anyone on purpose, and I didn't. I used to give out to Palestinian kids candies, because I felt sorry, bad for them. And I too know I cross lines. I too know that those limits of moral limits collapse. What we say is it will happen to everyone. It doesn't matter what your background, where you come from, who you are. After a month, after 6 months, after a year, it will happen to everyone. Let's go over to those pictures over there.
This is the kind of photo that you say, this is insane. People need to know. But this is the kind of photo that is just...
Okay, if we talked before about the most regular and common thing you would do, check people. So this was probably the most regular view in Hebron for us. Detain Palestinians. Hundreds of them. So what does it mean to detain a person? You are now not allowed, for a variety of reasons, which I'll explain in a minute, to go anywhere. It can be for an hour, it can be for 2 hours, it can be until the end of the shift, which makes it 6 or 8 hours. So one of the reasons to be detained is this picture. Palestinians, these 3 Palestinians, they broke the curfew. What is a curfew? And how do you break a curfew? A curfew is something that the army decided no one is allowed, Palestinians of course, to leave their house for a day, for a week, for a month. Every now and then, the army goes by, say everyone can go out, a few hours, then go back to the curfew. So if you break a curfew, that means you left your house during the curfew and walked around the street. So we need to punish them. So what does it mean? We detain people. Always blindfolded, the hands will always be tied. You won't let them sit next to each other because you don't want them to speak with each other. You won't let them use their phones because you don't want them to let other people know where they are. And it could be a different reason. If a Palestinian, this 15-year-old Palestinian, his crime was he threw stones towards settlers or soldiers. So he was detained, brought to the military base. See the soldiers on the back? This was a good time to relax, to have a break, smoke a cigarette, talk with your friends, watch TV, have a lunch maybe. Without noticing again, these people that you detain, dozens of them, you stop looking at them as people. They are just detained Palestinians, blindfolded, always. You stop looking at people as people. This is a good picture, it shows, it's in a very strong way, I think. 2 Palestinians were detained because they broke the curfew, but it was a Friday evening. So the soldiers brought them to the military base. Every Friday, these soldiers, remember them, we're going to talk about them at the end of the story. They used to have these cultural events on a Friday evening. 2 Palestinians detained, still going to do that cultural event. So they decided to celebrate them a birthday party. It wasn't their birthday. They, of course, the Palestinian didn't know what's going on. They couldn't see anything. And the joke was on them. So in a birthday, like a birthday, there are songs and there are games and it lasts for hours. And you think these are the bad soldiers, these are the saddest soldiers, these are the same soldiers that 8 years ago started this exhibition. They are the same soldiers that started breaking the silence, and they are the same soldiers that crossed every single line that they could have put for themselves. And they are the most regular soldiers you could find in the army. Let's go over and look at those pictures. So how do you get to a situation that you stop looking at people as people? We were in Hebron. When we were in Hebron, we asked our commanders, how are we supposed to protect 800 people? We were told, you have to suspect everyone. It doesn't matter who they are, men, women, children, what their age is. It doesn't matter what they did, what time it is. Everyone are suspects. So in Hebron, when I was there were 2 shifts each day. Each shift for 6 hours. And you stay there for 17 days, then you go back home for 4 days to rest, and then again for 5-6 months. So let's imagine the 3rd month, the 12th day, 2nd shift of the day, you're exhausted. You're on your shift on one of the roofs, looking out. Then you suddenly see a Palestinian 300 meters from you, 200 meters from you, starts to walk on the roofs. And you're very bored already, and you were told, suspected everyone, so you raise your arm and start aim at this person. And you don't shoot him, of course, because he hasn't done anything, but he's a suspect, so it's better to be alert. And at night, when you are very, again, bored, so you start aiming also at soldiers, at your best friends. Of course, you don't shoot them. Also this picture here. But you stop looking at people as people. And this was very, very common. I mean, every soldier used to raise his arm, look for people, aim at them, and lower it. Let's go over to those pictures over there. Just
Other units in the military.
2002, we're looking at this picture. In 11 months-year-old baby, a settler, an Israeli baby, was killed, murdered by a Palestinian sniper in Hebron. And this is our memorial site. You see, this is like a baby cart made out of stone. And this was probably the best place for a lunch break. After a few hours of patrol, of an 8 hours patrol, you have to walk with all the heavy equipment. So you want to relax. It was close to the base, so lunch could be brought there quickly by your friends. So after 4 hours of patrol, you go, you sit there, you relax, maybe you take a nap. It was clean, there was shade. It was nice to sit there. Sorry. And you never think to yourself, maybe it's wrong that I'm sitting and having a lunch or breakfast or taking a nap in a baby's memorial site. I think about myself now, there is not a chance in the world I would have a picnic in anyone's memorial site. And these are the Israelis. These are the good side. This is your side. This is the reason that you are there for, to protect them. You know, if it was a Palestinian memorial site, not that I would accept or agree, I think it's still horrible, but I could understand the mindset of a soldier that would do it. Palestinians, you don't really look at them as people, so the memorial sites are not memorial sites. So why not sit there? But these are the reason that you are there. This is the good side. And you also get numb out of this. This picture, taken around 2004. Two soldiers sitting in a Palestinian house. Probably there are other soldiers on the back, watching a football game. We have a testimony from the last years. The soldiers say we were on patrol one of the night, but it was the World Cup Championship. So we wanted to watch the game. But we couldn't go back to the base because we were on patrol, our mission. So what do? You go into a Palestinian village, look for a place to watch the game. So you look at the rooftops for satellite dishes. You enter the first house, the satellite doesn't work. The second one, the TV doesn't work. The third one was great, so why not sit there? 95 minutes of a game. The Palestinians, of course, can't say anything because 4 armed soldiers with grenades don't really ask them if they can come in, watch the game, and then leave. Beside that, we were told, suspected everyone, we were also told you have to make your presence felt to protect the sector. So what does it mean to make your presence felt? Israel controls millions of people that doesn't want us to control them. So we have to remind them every single day that we are in control. You're going to the bus, we'll see you on the bus. You're going to school, we'll see you on the way to school. You're going back from work, we'll visit you on the way back from work. One of the things to do is called mapping houses. The idea, the army's idea of it, to enter a house, Palestinian house, to know who lives there, how many people, how many rooms, to know better the surroundings. So you always do it at night because then you can be almost sure that most of the people of the house will be there. It's always been done to people, families that you know for 100% sure that are not related to any kind of terror activity. One of the nights that we do it, one of these operations, before we leave, my officer asks me, tells me to bring my own private camera. So I said, okay. We knock on the door of the first house, we enter, wake the whole people up, and place them in one room. After we do that, the soldiers, we're starting to do a search. What is a search? It's to move furniture, to open closets, to look under the bed, above the bed, for about half an hour. While we do that, my officer is in a different room taking a piece of paper, starting to write people's names and ID numbers and a drawing of the house, how many rooms, how big the kitchen, how small the bathroom is. And before we leave, he tells me, Nadav, bring your camera, start taking pictures of the people, because we want to show, we want to put it together with the IDs and the names. So around 1 o'clock at night, I'm asking the people, the family, to stand against the wall, and I'm starting to take pictures of them. Nice portraits of the family. And it's not that you map one house, you map about 4 or 5 houses every night you do it. So at the end of the night, I have about 20-25 pictures of Palestinians. Day after, I expected someone will ask for this very important intelligence material. No one comes after a week, and after 2 weeks, and I understand during the time that my officer threw away the things he wrote because no one asked for them. And after a month, no one asked for the pictures, so I erased them. And still no one asked me for those pictures. And I understand what it means to make your presence felt. No matter where you'll go, we'll be there every single second, every hour of the day. Because this is how you control people that doesn't want you to control them. Okay? Let's go on. We are looking towards this wall. Okay. So a part of your view is this, settlers' violence. So what are we seeing here? Graffiti that has been done by settlers against Palestinians in Hebron. I'll say a few words about this picture a bit later, okay? I guess everyone noticed it. I want to talk about this picture and that picture. It says Arabs out over here and revenge over there. It was both written on Palestinian shops or houses. And when this is your view as a soldier, even though we never agreed or accepted or liked any kind of graffiti like this, it affects you. This is a part of your atmosphere. This is a part of what you see around you. So it goes into your system even if you don't want to. But these graffitis, actually in a way Palestinians, I assume, don't care about them because they can't see them. Because over here you can see it, there is a street called the Shuhada Street where Palestinians are not allowed to walk from 2000. There was a lot of violence between settlers and Palestinians in that street, a lot of friction. The army wanted less violence, that means less friction. That means Palestinians are not allowed to walk in the street. One of the biggest streets in Hebron. If you would go there and visit, if I as an Israeli would go there, we will be able to walk there because we are not Palestinians. So why did I say I think Palestinians don't care about this graffiti? Because they can't leave their front door because over here is a street, they are not allowed to walk in, so they can't see the graffiti that has been done on their own private door. This picture takes a lot of attention. It was written not in the main streets, the big streets of Hebron, it was written one of the alleys there. And in a way doesn't represent even the 800 radicals and violent settlers of Hebron. But still it was there. And because we are obligated to show the truth and the reality, we are obligated to show even this picture. Like I said, I guess it doesn't represent even the 800 radicals. Like the settlements or the occupation, I don't want it to represent me as an Israeli civilian that is against it. But still, as an Israeli citizen, even though I don't like it and I'm against it, it represents me. And this is why it was so important for us to show exactly this picture. Because this is a part of the truth. Let's go on. One of the things that is so confusing and making your borders and limits disappear is actually because the same people they have to protect, the settlers, They are the same people you have to protect from. What does it mean? He looks crazy, this guy. He actually was one of the nice settlers in Hebron. Used to come, of course, nice to soldiers, not to Palestinians. Used to come to our shifts during the night, play for us music, give us cake, give us coffee. Many settlers used to invite us to their homes during a Friday night. If we had to stay a holiday, so they used to invite us to their house for a meal. But they are the same people that the next morning will attack a Palestinian, or will attack even you, soldiers. My battalion commanders, settlers in Hebron, there was an argument between them and him. They broke his arm. Only last July, all over the West Bank, 40 attacks of Palestinians of settlers against Palestinians. So they are the same people that their kids can invade or ruin a Palestinian shop that was abandoned. It was abandoned because about 1,800 shops of Palestinians were closed near the settlements. Hundreds of them by military order, the rest closed because no one was left to buy anymore, to sell. But it's still a Palestinian shop, and these kids are still ruining it, throwing rocks. As you know, Israel never annexed the West Bank, which is a good thing. But we have 500,000 settlers that live there. So there is one law, Israeli law, for those settlers, and for me if I would be there, and for you if you would come and visit. And there is one law, the military law, for the Palestinians. So even if I wanted to stop and arrest settlers that attack either me or others, the orders were never clear if I'm allowed to. The orders were never clear, and I never knew exactly what I have to do. I was trained as a soldier not to fight against citizens, against settlers. I was trained to fight against armies and tanks and soldiers. So for an example, a settler is starting to throw stones at a Palestinian, and the Palestinian is throwing stones at a settler. The best thing I can do as a soldier is to go in the middle, like in kindergarten, push them back, each side to their own corner. Of course, I will detain the Palestinians because he attacked the settler and I have to protect him. Like we saw before, it could be for 6 hours, it could be for an hour, and change. And I'm not really allowed to do anything with the settlers, so the best thing I can do is call the police, the Israeli police. They would come, it will take them some time, but they would come. But they also don't really able to do anything because they don't have the political back to do all these arrests. And if I was stationed in Hebron for 5-6 months, they are stationed there for about 2 years. So more cakes, more coffees, more invitation to the houses, even more tight, more close, more complicated. This picture always reminds me of an event that happened in 2010. One of the military bases, there are 2 military bases inside of Hebron, altogether about 120-130 soldiers. I served in one of them. In 2010, Friday afternoon, the Jewish custom says it's not allowed to open the gate, use any kind of electricity during Shabbat, Saturday. But inside the military base, there are some families of settlers that live. That means that the wall of the settlement is the wall of the military base. Every time they wanted to go to their house, they had to go through our military base. So just imagine we are preparing ourselves for an arrest, guns, equipment, grenades all over. You have these kids driving around with their bicycle through all these grenades and equipment. Like I said, Friday afternoon, Shabbat, Saturday is close to enter. The settlers tell the soldiers, we want you to keep the gate open so we won't have to close and use electricity during Shabbat, during Saturday. The soldiers, of course, say, no way, this is a military base, middle of Hebron, we're going to close the gate. Starts to be an argument, yes, no, open, close, open, close. At the end, what happened, one of the settlers takes cables, tears down the cables of the gate, and ruins the military gate. Of course, no one was arrested. Of course, no one did anything to anyone. What what did happen was the army understood maybe it's a problem that we have civilians walking through a military base 15 times a day, so we'll just open them a new passage to their houses. Let's go on. You can become closer to what we see here are confiscated keys, Palestinian keys, from around 2004 in a checkpoint near a settlement called Beitar, which is not far from Jerusalem. It was confiscated by reserved reserved soldiers. Been there for a month. There are different reasons why you confiscate someone's keys. I don't want to get into that. What I want to show through these pictures, through these keys, I think it's a very powerful exhibit because it shows that we control not only people's cars, we control people's keys to single thing they have, to their mailbox and to their homes and shops and apartments, whatever you can imagine. Israel controls, I think it shows more than anything else, 4 million people's life, their bicycles, of course metaphorically I'm speaking, in their mailbox and their cars. We control so many aspects of these people's life, the Palestinian population. Let's go on. We are looking at these pictures now. There are 4 pictures here we decided to put, not because they are unique in this exhibition, we've seen them before, Palestinians being detained, soldiers. Wanted to show maybe for 4 pictures to get for a moment inside the mindset, to understand what it's like to live under military control for 45 years. So you wake up the morning and like everyone, you make yourself a cup of coffee before you go to work or university, to school. And on the way you will probably see a soldier when you walk. Maybe that soldier won't do anything to you, but on the way back from work or university or school, this time the soldier will do something. Maybe he'll check your ID or your bags, or maybe will detain you, or just like we saw before in the beginning with a metal detector. Check if there's anything on you. And maybe when your parent or you go at evening to visit friends or to visit a family or just walk around, you will be detained for an hour, for 2 hours, for 6 hours. And you can't call anyone because you're not allowed to use your phone, so you can't let people know. Sorry, I'm going to be late. If you can come a bit closer, I want to show you this picture. What's going on here, if you would look carefully, it's not just Palestinian kids and a soldier, Palestinian kids that play soldiers. This is, I don't have a different name, but a checkpoint game. See, they're checking each other. The sticks are supposed to be the guns. And in a way, I'm saying it in a very sad way, this is the most expected picture I think you can find in an exhibition like this after 45 years of occupation. Because these children imitate their life. They imitate everything that is around them. They imitate the grown-ups. They imitate the arrests they saw, the mapping of houses they saw. And in a way it makes sense. In a way it makes sense that this is what they will play. This soldier is not an important part of this picture, but he's the most important part of this picture because he reminds us this is not their imagination. This is not something they came up with. This is what they saw. That the reason that they are doing this is because they live under occupation. Because last week there was a curfew and next week there will be a mapping of the house, and 3 weeks from now your brother will be arrested, and it goes on. If you can turn over to those pictures here. There are two events here, all taking place in the Gaza Strip. 2003, and the rest are from 2002. It's important to say the Palestinians you see here dead were terrorists, tried to invade one of the settlements before they were dismantling the Gaza Strip to kill people. This is the greenhouse where they were killed, the Palestinians, the terrorists. That means how close they were. I want to talk about the soldiers. They are not the soldiers that killed the terrorists. There are other soldiers that were in the area during that time. They heard about what's going on. They wanted to come and see the action. When your mission is to kill terrorists or to do a curfew or detain people, and you succeed in this mission, you want to document it. You want to show off. You want to brag. This is like a trophy for you. It's a sick trophy, and these guys, no doubt, lost every kind of limit there is. To take a picture smiling with a corpse, no matter what he did, my personal opinion is absolutely sick. But it's there. And if that's not enough, you see this soldier here, the officer, he wanted the trophy only for himself. So he wanted to do a Photoshop picture. This is not a genuine picture. This is not real. It's copied here. This is how your limits and your boundaries don't exist anymore. And it's important to say this is an extreme version of these kind of pictures and documentation. We have lots of testimonies that soldiers say that they saw, that they took, or that they were in pictures like this, but still this is an extreme version. I want to show you a picture. Pass it along. 2008 Nablus. Mapping of houses. You can pass it between you. One of the books we published. A regular picture, not only in Gaza in 2002 or my story from 2008 in Hebron, the same thing in 2008, in 2010 or in 2006 in Nablus or Ramallah or Bethlehem or in the villages. Because this is the mindset, this is how you control people. This is a strategy. This is not one case. Let's go over to that wall to speak about the other wall. This soldier gave a testimony to breaking the silence, also gave these pictures he took. I want to read you a part of the testimony. I have a hobby to take pictures, and all my life is documented with a camera. This is his testimony. I don't know what I was thinking taking these pictures. In the army, I used to have a camera in my hand all the time. I remember how I waited to take more pictures to add to my collection. I always smiled while I was photographed and never paid any attention to who was beside me. I had too much adrenaline looking for action, and I was very proud of myself, and yet somewhere I was ashamed of it. I don't know what happened to me, and the truth is that I still don't know. This guy probably took pictures of everything that was around him, his friends, the view, himself. And a part of your view is Palestinians, detained Palestinians. Why not take pictures of them as well? They of course don't know it, they can't see anything. Who cares? About 2 years ago, something like that, there was a female soldier called Eden Abalji. She uploaded pictures similar to this to her Facebook wall. Made a lot of fuss, noise in the Israeli media. Is it right? Is it wrong? What does it mean? The IDF spokesman, his official comment about it was, it's bad, no doubt it's bad. Morally it's bad, but maybe it's one case, 2 cases, 3 cases. It's a rotten apple. It doesn't represent the system. So we decided in breaking the silence to show that it does. So we gave the media more pictures similar to this. the most easy thing to do for a society and for any kind of society is to go and blame him or me. And we all have responsibility for what we did. Every member in the 850 members of Breaking the Silence has a responsibility for what he did. But the easier thing to do is to go and ask for a trial for him. We demand a trial not only for us, but for the system. We demand a trial for the occupation. Because as long as you control people, for decades, you'll have pictures like this. We will have no more moral boundaries. Let's talk about the last picture. Around 2004, the Jordan Valley near Jericho, Palestinian city. If we look at this picture now in 2012, for whoever supports the occupation, great, what's the problem? Occupation never been better. Everyone are smiling. The economy is better now. Less violence on both sides, which is good. Coexistence, great. This is exactly the problem. They're not smiling because they like the soldiers, they enjoy the occupation. They are smiling because they are afraid of their guns, I guess. Or maybe if they won't smile, they won't pass the checkpoint, or their keys will be confiscated, or they will be detained, and maybe not. But after they come back, because they have to go back through the same checkpoint, this time their bags will be checked, or their IDs, or they will be detained for who knows how long. I told you at the beginning, I was the good soldier, I was the kind, the nice one. What I can tell now, I can understand now after I've been at the army, after I did occupation, is there is no such thing as the nice soldier in an occupation situation. You can't be nice and control people. We have testimonies of soldiers that invaded Palestinian houses for military operation for 2-3 days. The family couldn't leave. They locked them in the house. Every time they wanted to go for the bathroom to make food, they had to ask permission from the soldiers in their own house. And the soldiers felt so bad about it. So after they left, they cleaned the house, and maybe they left some money because they ate some of the food of the family. But then only later they understood that they stopped and didn't allow people to leave their own house for 2-3 days. And this is the nicest you can get. We're now showing a film, a 15 minutes film, but it's on the other side of the room, so if you can join. Okay. This film was filmed in 2004 in a checkpoint called Hawara. I'll show you where it is on the map, not because it's a geography lesson, but because I want to show you where it's not. It's between the city of Nablus in the north of the West Bank and a village called Hawara, quite a large village. And the checkpoint was in between them, on one of the roads that connect between them. And the green line is over here. This is Israel, and the checkpoint is here. Still, most of the checkpoints are not between Israel and Palestine, but are between Palestine and Palestine. What does it mean? It means that they are between Palestinian villages, or between Palestinian cities, or cities and villages, or Palestinians and their lands. This film was filmed in 2004 in the checkpoint Hawara by the army. It was filmed in a way to prepare soldiers for the time that they are going to be in checkpoints. It was censored by the same army, then was linked by one of the soldiers to the media, the Israeli media, and from then we used it. It's 15 minutes. After, we'll have some time for questions, so if you can stay. Thanks. You can stay just for a few more minutes. I think there is nothing extreme about this movie or about the pictures you can see in this exhibition. This is the most regular film or regular pictures and events, situations. I think that for me what's the most powerful thing from this movie is what the other soldiers say. Everyone knew what's going on. 60 soldiers say, everyone knew, the officers knew, everyone took part of it. Or most of the people, most of the soldiers. But still, the army says this is a rotten apple. This is one case, we'll deal with him. and then occupation goes back to be okay. Later on, one last thing, if you can just sit for one. Thanks. About 2 years ago, we published the most important project of breaking the silence, this book, just translated to German, also to English. The reason that it's so important, the most important project that we did, is because it's the first time we give an analysis of different aspects of the occupation. There are 4 chapters here. Each chapter has a foreword written by members of Breaking the Silence that gives an analysis of a specific aspect with supports of dozens of testimonies. We sell it here if you want to buy. Beside that, we have a mailing list if you want and can. You want to stay connected to our project. We have a donation box if you can, and want, and willing to help us support our work. So again, thank you very much for coming. And if you have any more questions, I'm here. Our exhibition, we traveled in different places in the world. It started in Israel, was invited by the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli Parliament, to even show it there. We go in different places to show this reality, the truth about the occupation, because we think that we as soldiers that serve there, we're now obligated to show this truth not only to the Israel society, but also to everyone else. Our main goal is to stop the occupation, and it's to increase the inner debate in the Israel society and of course the international community as well about the moral consequences of the 45 years of occupation.
What is the mission of Breaking the Silence?
So Breaking the Silence started as an organization in March 2004 by a group of soldiers that served in Hebron, which is one of the biggest cities in the West Bank, south of Jerusalem, during the peak of the Second Intifada. 22 Israelis killed in Hebron, out of them a 10-month-old baby in Shalhevet Pas. 88 Palestinians were killed. 64 of them were not involved in any violence or any actions against the army or the settlers, and 2 of them were actually killed by settlers themselves, a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. Now this is what they were going through, and in this 1 year, even people that were totally with the mission, no questions, they realized that there's this crazy gap between what they're doing inside the army, day in and day out, and what their family, friends, communities know about back home. And this gap, or this silence, started to affect them, and they said, look, there's something is going on here. I mean, we're experiencing these things during our service, but we're coming home. We can't bring this home to our family's dinner table. And eventually, after finishing their 3 years of service, with questions, with thoughts, with discussions, they decided to put together an exhibition of pictures, of photos, of testimonies, very spontaneous, very not sophisticated, or very low tech. And they thought this could start some sort of debate inside the Israeli society. Now this debate actually was much wider than they expected, and thousands of people came to this very simple exhibition. They were also invited to show it in the Knesset, in the Parliament, which today is unheard of, with probably one of the most right-wing governments we ever had. But maybe the most important thing that happened is that people from different units, different places, different times, came out and said, we can tell you the exact same story. And the story is not only a specific unit in Hebron in 2002, but the story is paratroopers in 2000 in Nablus, or Golani, which is another infantry brigade, in 2003 in Bethlehem. And they realized this isn't the specific story of a specific unit, but the story of a generation. I served from November 2004 till 2007. What we do today in the organization is we focus on 3 major things. The first, the heart of our work, is gathering testimonies, having the information brought to the public, that we can have a real debate about what is happening and what is the moral price we're paying for controlling 4 million people. We do educational work, bringing people to tours in Hebron or in the South Hebron Hills using our testimonies. And the third part of our work is lobby work, because we understand that it can't only stay within the realm of a very specific group or community, but the idea is to increase resistance to the occupation. And increased resistance to the occupation has to also go through political levels, also with the help of journalists, and this isn't only something that could stay or change with doing only educational work.
So, what's the sort of experience while serving that actually gets a soldier to take what's quite a big step to speak out against the Israeli armed forces?
My dad was a paratrooper. I'm named after a paratrooper that was killed in the Yom Kippur War, 1973. This is an important, it's not something that starts when you enlist in the army, right? It's actually Israel, if you'd like it or not, especially not all communities, but big parts of the communities are very militaristic. I mean, it's part of our society, it's part of our community. In the communities that do join the army, and not everyone joins the army, but in the communities that do join the army, it's very clear that this is your next step after high school. So when I turned 18, I did the year of community service, but after that year I joined the army, I went to the paratroopers. I felt that I'm continuing, my family heritage or what I was supposed to do. And I have to say that I did enter the army with questions, but maybe not the right questions, maybe not all the questions, but I did, feel that I'm like a good Jew. This is what I was told in yeshiva. You have to walk around with question marks around your head. So I think I went into the army feeling I have the question marks, and the question marks is, how will I be a good soldier in a shitty situation? How will I be a good soldier in a bad situation? And I thought I could be that soldier standing in a checkpoint and smiling while cars passing by, or I could enter a house but walk around with candies in my pockets, and conduct a moral occupation, right? Which took me a while, but I realized this is a contradiction in terms. And when we started actually doing our actual service after almost a year and a couple of months of training, we started entering houses on a nightly basis. And searching houses on a nightly basis, or going in to arrest people in the middle of the night, you realize that it's impossible to be moral in an immoral situation. And I think this is something that's extremely difficult for us to explain. I mean, we've been touring the States for 3 weeks, and we came here to Australia with a book which is called Our Harsh Logic. And I think the best understanding of what this harsh logic is, understanding what the soldier is going through in his mindset. And as a soldier, you rationalize situations. Now, your mission is to enter a house because this is what you were asked to do. It doesn't matter how big your smile will be to the family. You're disrupting their day-to-day life. And when the orders we got were instill the sense of fear, or to instill the sense of someone is chasing you, or to brand the consciousness of Palestinians, or like I said before, to disrupt the day-to-day life of Palestinians' population, this is what it looks like. And there's no way to do it nicely.
It's a further step. Behaviors like systematic humiliation, even reaching to assault and torture.
There's many ways I can approach this, but I think it's important to understand the three kinds of testimonies we gather. The two extreme kinds of testimonies we gather. One extreme is what we all refer to as extreme cases, right? What beating up, stealing, humiliating, taking pictures with dead bodies, or taking pictures with tied up Palestinians. We all know this happens. There's footage of this, there's discussions of this. How most Israelis deal with this is they find a scapegoat. They say it's the soldier's fault, specifically him. What you have to do is enforce the law even harder on the soldiers. This is if you think it's a problem. There's many people that some of the incidents we're only talking about the people that find this as a problem. The other kind of testimony are illegal things that happen. For example, using a human shield. Happened in the West Bank in 2003. There was a Palestinian that was killed after soldiers entered the house, used him as a human shield. He was injured and killed. And the Supreme Court decided this was illegal. We have testimonies of soldiers doing this in 2005, in 2006. and so on and so forth. 2009, there was a very famous case in Operation Cast Lead of using a human shield. Illegal, right? Shooting white phosphorus, and so on and so forth. Also, the illegal things, when people find that they're a problem, also a lot of people don't think they're even a problem, right? But people who find them problematic will say, well, it's illegal, it's very clear what you have to send them to jail. But the heart of the testimony, right, the ground of how these actions are growing is the day-to-day life, is the routine, are the things that no one questions, right? For example, entering a house for military purposes, what is called a straw widow. I took part in numerous straw widows. This is something that happens around the West Bank, not really questioned, not considered illegal, not considered extreme. But when you have the order to enter a house and eventually do whatever you like in the house because you need it for military purposes, it's a very slippery slope. Because when you enter a house and only use it for an observation point, what do you do when your water is finished? And there's no other way to get water to you. Do you drink water or you don't drink water? What happens if your food finishes? Right? So when we're sitting here very comfortably, we say, of course, it's immoral to take someone's water or food without permission. Even though it's very easy to get permission when you have a helmet and gun, right? No one will say no to you. But this doesn't end. Like what happens if you have to take a shower in the house? And if you're in the house suddenly for 48 hours or 3 days? And if you're allowed to sit on the sofa, allowed to put your legs on the table? The thing is that it's extremely easy to sterilize the discussion, right? And say, well, it's very clear, it's either this or that. But the truth of the matter is, when you're standing in a checkpoint, you can be nice for the first hour. But after 4 hours of being hungry and hot or cold and pissed off, and the only way you can actually control people is by force, that's what you're going to do. And it's not a chance that we see the same testimonies coming up at the beginning of the Second Intifada, in the middle of the past decade, and yesterday, or tonight. We'll go see what's happening in the West Bank. We'll see similar stories.
I mean, is there any kind of de facto or maybe even officially sanctioned or promoted, racist culture that acts as a justifying or or motivating force? Is this part of the reality of Israeli occupation?
Listen, it has to be part. It has to be part. In order to understand what is happening in the occupation, and this is where there is a difference between what's happening in the rest of Israel, is in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, everything, of course, is under Israeli control in the wider sense. There's a difference between Israel's control in the West Bank and Israel's control in Gaza, but we are still controlling both pieces of land. The law there, and it doesn't matter what your politics are, is a different law than the rest of Israel. Right? We're talking about one area that has civilian law, right, where people have the right to vote, where people have a political power, where people can go out to the street and demonstrate, and it's legal. In the West Bank, it's army law, it's martial law, and it's not by the people for the people, it's by Israel for Israel. Now, of course, this is every occupation, this isn't new. But two important things we have to remember. First of all, is this has been going on for 45 years. And as we see on the ground, and this is part of what we're trying to show with the book, there's no exit strategy. We're working on the ground with no end in sight. The second thing is, we started for different reasons, ideological reasons, security reasons, some people would say, to mobilize Jewish communities from Israel into the West Bank. And when we started to mobilize them, we created a situation that de facto there is never a possibility for equality. Because you're talking about 350, together with East Jerusalem, 500,000 Jewish settlers that are under Israeli civilian law. And 2.5 million Palestinians that are under army law, under martial law. Right? They'll never be equal. If you have two people meeting in the heart of Hebron, both in the same exact moment pick up a rock and throw it at each other, but one is Palestinian and one is Israeli, the Israeli would be tried under civilian law. Right? The Palestinian will be tried as a terrorist, doing the exact same thing. Now we can go on and give more examples with mistreating of children, right? Which a Palestinian child will not be treated the same as an Israeli child because there's a different law. That's where we understand that there'll never be equality, and there will always be, you could call it racism, and I think this is part of the story. And the bottom line, there's the idea of differentiating between two populations is part of the story, and part of what we talk about in the book that I'm here to promote is the idea of separation. This is the second chapter of the book. Most people really think that we're spending most of our time separating Israelis from Palestinians, but that's only part of what we're doing. They're already separated by law, but we're also doing another thing, which is separating Palestinians from Palestinians. And that's actually what we're spending most of our time doing. And this idea of separation is already implemented on the ground. When we actually broke down what we see the occupation is into 4 pillars, right? The occupation is a chair, the 4 legs of the chair, where these are actually terms that most soldiers know about, and actually even most Israelis know about, but they're referred to in a positive connotation. The first one is prevention, right? You prevent something bad from happening to someone good, can't be bad. Separation, like I mentioned, most of the international community is talking about the 2-state solution. That's separation. It isn't initially evil, right? We can debate if it's the right solution or not, but the third is fabric of life, allowing the Palestinians to maintain their fabric of life. Sounds excellent. And law enforcement. And what we try to do in the book is actually to break that down and to discover what these terms actually mean. In Hebrew, the word prevention means sikul. When you tell an Israeli sikul, the first thing that comes to mind is sikul memukad, targeted prevention, which is the best way to translate it, or targeted killing, assassinations. You have a ticking bomb scenario, Palestinians strapped with a bomb to him, leaving a big Palestinian city to a major Israeli city. It isn't new. This happened during the Second Intifada. I remember, being scared driving in buses in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. This is something that we remember, and we have to stop this ticking bomb scenario. And we use this tool, which is called targeted killing, assassinations. This, I think, most of Israelis will agree is something we have to do. But this already went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, you can use this tool as targeted assassinations only in the case of a ticking bomb scenario. But this is only the tip of this idea. We actually made it wider and wider and wider. And we continued on using this tool of targeted assassinations and killing people that aren't a ticking bomb scenario, but could be involved in violence, could be involved with what Israel sees as terror against Israelis or settlements, and are definitely people that Israel could arrest, but we couldn't get our hands on them, so we assassinate them. Right? This is taking us to the next level down, of course, with no trial, but it doesn't end there. Right? We also assassinate people for different reasons, political reasons. It's happened in Gaza many times. And the widest idea of this idea of prevention, or targeted prevention, is actually revenge killings. And we know about a dozen revenge killings. One of the famous ones is February 19th, 2002. In a checkpoint near Ramallah called En Arik, 6 Israeli soldiers were killed by Palestinians. The next night, 3 different units were launched to 3 different places, 2 in the West Bank, 1 in Gaza. The orders they got: this is a revenge attack. Everyone standing in a checkpoint at a specific time at night, you shoot to kill. At the end of the night, 15 Palestinian policemen were found dead. Now, this isn't a local officer's decision. This is at least the chief of staff, if not higher. There was a piece in one of the Israeli newspapers talking about this. But this is only one example of the idea of prevention. And we managed to take this very tip of idea of prevention, for example, arrests, make it wider and wider. So we first arrest the people we thought we have to arrest, then we arrest their neighbors or their cousins, and then we have mass arrests. right? Arresting everyone between 18 and 35. But the biggest idea of prevention that affects every Palestinian is what we call having our presence felt. And how do you have your presence felt? You're there every minute. Every Palestinian, doesn't matter what he's involved in, doesn't matter what he does for a living, he has to know you're right here. When we talk about entering houses, besides the fact that we're using the houses as military outposts, this is another way to have our presence felt. It's another way to show that we're always there.
Well, another pillar is separation, and of late more and more commentators, some of whom Israeli commentators, have said, this is the same idea as apartheid, separation, apartheid, separate. What's your comment on that?
Well, I didn't live in South Africa under apartheid. I don't know what it really looks like. I read about it in books. What I know and what we're experts in is the Israeli occupation. Now, I can't say I don't have the legal background. I don't have the historical background to say if legally this is what it is or if it isn't. What I can say is this is what it looks like, and this looks very bad. When we talk about the idea of separation, this is definitely part of what is happening in the West Bank today. I think that focusing and trying to find out if this is apartheid or isn't apartheid is pushing us away from the real issue, which is this is occupation, this is what it looks like, this is what it means to be a soldier that's conducting occupation, this is what it means to be a Palestinian living under occupation. Let's deal with that. When we talk about separation, one of the cities that we deal with, that we're in almost 4 times a week, is a city called Hebron, which I mentioned. And in the heart of Hebron, we're actually separating Israelis from Palestinians. Besides the fact that we separated both sides of the city, the Israeli part, there's still 30,000 Palestinians and 700 Jewish settlers. And the heart of the city, right, what used to be the biggest market in Hebron, is actually a road which is a sterile road. Which means Palestinians are not allowed to walk on this road. There's actually people living in the houses on top of this road. Used to be 30 families, now only 5 are left. But they can't even leave the front door of their house. Now, in my perspective, not only that this has nothing to do with the Israel that I want to be proud of, this has nothing to do with the Judaism I believe in, and this has nothing to do with taking us towards a solution. Now, the answer to what my claims are could be, well, this is security. And what can you do for security? This is what you have to do. The last Israeli killed in Hebron was in 2003. Right? The peak of the Second Intifada, which I mentioned earlier, was a very difficult time, to say the least, both for Israelis and for Palestinians. And maybe the idea then was, okay, let's separate the two communities. Of course, we have to remember that the idea of separation started with Goldstein's massacre in 1994. We won't get into that, but it wasn't only the separation didn't start with Palestinian violence in Hebron. It actually started with Jewish terror and Jewish violence, which is important to say. But when we talk about what is happening today in Hebron, October 2012, or almost 2013, almost 10 years after the last Israeli killed in Hebron, we're still talking about 1,800 stores shut down on military orders. We're talking about 70% unemployment. We're talking about Palestinians not being allowed to walk on some streets, drive in some streets, or open stores in streets. And we're actually pushing them into a different part of the city, which theoretically, again, could be legitimate if we're saying you could live there and we could live here. But what we're seeing all over the West Bank, and Hebron is only a microcosm of that, is that we're slowly pushing Palestinians into smaller areas, what is called Area A and Area B, which are together less than 40% of the West Bank. Okay? So it doesn't matter what our viewers or what your opinions are, if we should have a one-state or a two-state, but any sort of solution regarding this, regarding or that will bring us to end the occupation, has to acknowledge the fact that we can't allow more illegal outposts to be built while pushing Palestinians out of Area C. It's the biggest part of the West Bank, more than 64%, and we're actually slowly but surely making sure there won't be Palestinians there and de facto annexing the land.
פעם אחת ביקשתי, הייתה איזושהי התרחשות בבסיס וראיתי שקורה משהו, שמשהו הולך לקרות. היו כל מיני אנשים על אזרחי, כל מיני שב"כניקים וכאלה. פשוט ביקשתי מהמ"פ ומהקמב"ץ, מהמ"פ של הפלוגה הלוחמת ומהקמב"ץ שיקחו אותי גם. שאלתי אותם מה קורה, עד שהסכימו להגיד לי, אמרו לי חיפוש נשק, אמרתי להם, קחו אותי גם. אני לא יודעת איך הם הסכימו, אני לא יודעת מה, לא זוכרת כמה ניסיתי לשכנע אותם, אבל בסוף הם הסכימו. אני זוכרת שזה היה באמצע הלילה, הייתי צריכה להישאר ערה, וככה בשקט ללכת איתם. חוץ ממני הייתה שם עוד סמב"צית, היינו שתי הבחורות היחידות. אני הייתי היחידה שהיא מן הסתם בלי נשק, כי לא הייתה לי שום הכשרה כזאת, רק עם האפוד והקסדה. ואז התחלנו לנסוע לתוך האזורים בחברון שבחיים לא הייתי בהם, ואני זוכרת שהסתכלתי מהחלון וראיתי את כל הרחובות ריקים וחשוכים, והבנתי שכאילו עשיתי איזשהו צעד שלא ברור כל כך מה היו ההשלכות שלו, והתחלתי נורא לפחד. אני זוכרת גם ששאלתי אותם, אוקיי, רגע, אנחנו מגיעים לבית, מה אני עושה? ואז אמרו לו, פשוט תרוצי איתנו. כאילו, פשוט זה. תצמדי למישהו אחד ותרוצי, אז בהתחלה, בירידה מהג'יפ שכולם התחילו לרוץ שם לכל מיני מקומות, אז נצמדתי לקמב"ץ, ואז עליתי במדרגות, זה הבית גבוה כזה, עליתי במדרגות ונצמדתי למ"פ. וזהו, ואז נכנסנו, האבא פתח את הדלת כזה. הם היו נורא מאומנים, האבא היה עם חלוק, נכנס, ישר נכנסנו פנימה, מהר מאוד האמא ועם ילד או ילדה עליה, ועוד איזה ילד קטן צעיר, ועוד איזה אישה מבוגרת, נעמדו בפינה של החדר, זה היה בית מאוד גדול, של החדר שנכנסנו בו. ואני בהתחלה נכנסתי כזה בצעדים מאוססים, הסתכלתי על הקירות, היו כל מיני תמונות של ירושלים, שזה נורא הפתיע אותי שיש תמונות של ירושלים גם בבתים שלהם. והיו כל מיני כתובות על הקיר בערבית, ותמונות של סדאם חוסיין, כאילו קלטתי שאני באמת בבית של פלסטינים בחיים שלי, לא הייתי בבית של פלסטינים קודם. והדבר הראשון שאני זוכרת מהחוויה הזאת, זה המבט של האישה, שהסתכלה עליי ופשוט התביישתי. הרגשתי איזה חוצפנית אני, שבאתי רק כי הייתי סקרנית, כי רציתי להיות חלק מהחבר'ה, ורציתי להיות שם ולראות מה זה. כאילו, ואני נכנסת אליה הביתה באיזה 2 לפנות בוקר, וכולי סתם מסתכלת על כל הדברים, מסתכלת על הכל. נכנסו מן הסתם הרבה שוטרים, והם התחילו להפוך שם את כל הדברים, ומהר מאוד הכל היה על הרצפה. אני זוכרת שבשלב מסוים שאלתי את המ"פ, הלכתי כל הזמן עם המ"פ, כי גם נורא פחדתי, פתאום שמישהו ישלוף משהו, לא יודעת, הייתי כל הזמן בפחד שמשהו יקרה, שהשקט הזה, שבצורה שבה זה מתנהל, הייתה נראית לי לא הגיונית. האבא הלך איתנו מחדר לחדר, כל האנשים והזקנה והילדים היו בצד, ואני זוכרת ששאלתי את המ"פ אם אנחנו עוזרים להם לסדר אחר כך, כאילו הייתי כל כך תמימה, אנחנו נעזור להם לסדר אחר כך את כל הבלגן הזה, כי ספרים ובגדים וממש. ואני זוכרת גם שבאותו רגע חשבתי שמה היה קורה אם היו נכנסים אליי הביתה באמצע הלילה, ומישהו היה ככה עובר עם אבא שלי מחדר לחדר, והייתי מסתכלת מהצד והייתי רואה את ההשפלה הזאת. ואני זוכרת שזה כל הזמן הלך איתי. ואני זוכרת שגם דיברתי עם המ"פ, ואמר לי שפשוט אין דרך אחרת לעשות את זה. שזאת הדרך היחידה. זהו, זה נמשך עוד קצת, עברנו מחדר לחדר, אני זוכרת את הרגע שבין כל הבלגן מצאנו קלטות פורנו של האבא, ואת הבושה שהייתה, כאילו השוטרים נורא התלהבו, זה היה כזה מין קטע כזה של איזה מגניב, מצאנו משהו סקסי בתוך העניין הזה, ואני זוכרת את הבושה של האבא, שאנחנו מסתכלים, ואני זוכרת שהוא הסתכל עליי גם, שאני עמדתי שם וראיתי את ההתלהבות הזאת, זה אפילו עוד יותר הביך אותו ממה שכל הסיטואציה הביכה אותו. וזהו, הדבר הבא שאני זוכרת זה היה השלב שבאמת לא מצאו שום דבר, והסתכלו על הקירות וניסו לראות איפה עוד אפשר להפוך ולשגע את זה. וכבר כאילו נורא רציתי שיגמר ושניצא משם ושדי מספיק, היה לי מספיק מהחוויה הזאת. ואז המ"פ בא ואמר לי שצריך לחפש על אנשים. שאני והבחורה השנייה שהייתה איתי, הסמבטית, צריכות לחפש על אנשים אם יש להם נשק. עכשיו, הבחורה השנייה שהייתה איתי הייתה כבר, היה לה ניסיון בכמה מבצעים כאלה קודם, אז היא נגאלה, אבל היא כבר עשתה את זה בעבר. אני הייתי בשוק. וזהו, אני לא זוכרת שלא הבאתי איזושהי התנגדות, פשוט עשיתי מה שאמרו לי. הוא הכניס אותנו לאיזה חדר קטן ליד המטבח שם בצד. קודם כל חיפשנו על האימא, על הבחורה שהייתה יחסית צעירה, כי אני זוכרת שכל הזמן חשבתי על זה. וזהו, אני זוכרת פתאום את הרגע שאני והבחורה שהייתה איתי נמצאות מולה בחדר קטן, ומה עושים לעזאזל? כאילו אני זוכרת שלא יודעת מה אני צריכה לעשות. וזהו, אמרנו לה להוריד הייתה עם פיג'מה כזאת, אמרנו לה להוריד את הבגדים, לא הפשטנו אותה לגמרי, אני מודה. ואז התחלתי לחפש עליה, כמו שהם מחפשים בסרטים. כאילו לא ידעתי איך אני אמורה לעשות את זה בכלל. ואני זוכרת את הריח, אני זוכרת שזה הגעיל אותי שאני נוגעת במישהי שאני לא מכירה, ועוד אני זוכרת שפשוט נגעלתי מהריח. וזהו, הפעם הראשונה הייתה מאוד מאוססת. כאילו, אני עשיתי את הפעם הראשונה לפי דעתי, והבחורה שהייתה איתי הסתכלה עליי, ואני זוכרת שבשלב מסוים גם דיברנו על זה שאני אמרתי שלא מעניין אותי מה יהיה, כי דיברנו בינינו עוד לפני שנכנסנו לחדר, שיש בחורות שמחפשות עם כפפות בתוך, כאילו בדיקה חודרנית בתוך הגוף שלהם. ואני זוכרת בשלב שהחלפנו שהאישה הצעירה יותר יצאה החוצה והאישה המבוגרת עמדה להיכנס, ואמרתי לה שבאמת מבחינתי שיהיה להם פצצה בפנים, אני לא דוחפת את הידיים שלי לשום מקום. וזהו, האישה המבוגרת נכנסה, ואז חיפשנו גם עליה, גם אותה לא הפשטנו עד הסוף. וזהו, בבית הזה זה נגמר. זאת אומרת, יצאנו החוצה, המ"פ לא שאל אותנו, מן הסתם לא מצאנו כלום, כי גם לא ממש חיפשנו כנראה. המ"פ לא שאל אותנו איך היה, עד כמה הפשטנו כלום. כאילו זה היה מין איזשהו משהו כדי לעשות על זה וי ולהגיד שעשינו. בפעם השנייה כבר, זה לא שפחות נגעלתי, אבל עשיתי את זה באיזושהי צורה יותר מכנית, כבר לא... זה היה פחות שוק. ואחרי שסיימנו עם הבית הזה, עוד יצאנו אחר כך לבית אחר, שהיה בית קטן כזה שהיה בחצר, וגם שם היינו צריכות לחפש על אישה שהייתה שם, ואת זה אני כבר זוכרת שעשיתי כמו מכונה, פשוט עברתי לה על הגוף, הסתכלתי לראות שאין שום דבר בכל... אני זוכרת שהגעתי להם בציצים, וזה הגעיל אותי שאני נוגעת לבחורה אחרת בציצים. וגם איפה יכול להיות לה על בציצים סכין, פצצה או whatever, או נשק, חלקים של נשק. וזהו, והלילה הזה היה משהו שאסור היה לי לדבר עליו. כשיצאנו משם והיינו כבר בדרך לבסיס, אז אני זוכרת את התחושה הזאת של אני לא מאמינה שהייתי בבית של פלסטינים באמצע הלילה, אני לא מאמינה שככה נראה חיפוש באמת, ואני לא מאמינה שחיפשתי על נשים, ועוד יותר לא האמנתי שאני לא יכולה לדבר על זה. המ"פ העביר לי בצורה מאוד מאוד ברורה שכאילו אסור לי לדבר על זה, אסור לי להזכיר שלקחו את המש"קית חינוך לחיפוש נשק, אין שום צורך שאף אחד ידע על זה. וזהו, דיברתי על זה קצת עם הבחורה שהייתה איתי למחרת, ולא דיברתי עם זה עם אף אחד, בכלל. אפילו לא דיברתי על זה עם עצמי, אני חושבת.
סיפור נוסף שאני זוכר מהעוצר בחברון, היה יום של בגרויות לתלמידי התיכון. ויש עמדה ששומרת על שערים 4 ו-5 של הקספה המערבית, היא גם נקראת 4-5, ועליה שמרנו באותו בניין שהעמדה נמצאת מתחתיו, בקומה אולי האחרונה או אולי אחת לפני האחרונה, גרה משפחת ג'אברי. משפחת ג'אברי הייתה די מוכרת, כולנו הכרנו אותם, הוא היה אבא, היו לו הרבה בנות, יכול להיות שגם ילד קטן, אבל אני לא בטוח, והבנות שלו היו בגיל תיכון. הודיעו לנו בקשר שיש עוצר, ואמרו, חברים, אף אחד לא יוצא. גם אנחנו יודעים שיש היום בגרויות, גם החבר'ה של הבגרויות לא יוצאים לעשות בגרות. אין, יש עוצר. יורדת הבת של ג'אברי, כולה לחוצה. עכשיו אני מכיר אותה טוב. היא יושבת על העמדה, אבא שלה בלילות היה שם לנו רדיו קטן כדי שנשמע, כדי להעביר לנו את הזמן בכיף. היא יורדת כולה לחוצה והיא מדברת בעיקר ערבית, כי העברית שלה לא הייתה טובה, אם בכלל. והיא אומרת שהיא נורא לחוצה ושהיא חייבת להגיע לבגרות והיא כבר מאחרת והיא למדה כל הלילה וזה לא ילך עכשיו לפח וזה. עכשיו נכון, יש עוצר. ונכון, אסור לתת להם ללכת. אני מכיר את הילדה הזאת. היא לא תעשה שום דבר. היא לא יודע. משום מה פתאום כל הפקודה הזאת לא נראתה לי הגיונית. לא היה נראה לי הגיוני שאני אמנע מהילדה הזאת לגשת לבגרות שלה בגלל שמישהו החליט שהיום קצת מסוכן. זה חברון, כל הזמן מסוכן. בקיצור, נתנו לה ללכת. אני חושב שלא עברו יותר מ-20, אולי 25 דקות, שהיא חזרה כולה בוכה אלינו, מפוצצת, אדומה וכאילו בוודאות היא קיבלה מכות ממישהו. אנחנו היינו נורא נסערים, לא הבנו כל כך מה קרה, היא לא הסכימה להחליף איתנו אפילו חצי מילה והיא עלתה מיד הביתה. מאוחר יותר בדקות הקרובות הבנו שבהמשך של אותו כביש נמצא השמירה על שער 6 לקספה המערבית שהוא בדיוק מול מערת המכפלה. ומי שממונה על האזור הזה זה מג"ב. הם פשוט תפסו אותה ופוצצו אותה במכות. את הילדה המסכנה הזאת. בת 15, 16, 17. מחריד. פעם השנייה שנכנסתי לקספה המערבית, זה היה בפטרול, ופתאום זה יום. הפעם הראשונה הייתה בלילה, אז אתה מסתובב ואין כל כך אנשים, אתה מאוד מפחד, כי בחיים לא היית בסיטואציה כזאת, ולא הסתובבת באזור כזה, בטח שלא כל הלילה, ובטח שלא שאתה חשוף כל הזמן וזה, אז זה עדיין נורא מלחיץ. הפעם השנייה שהיא ביום, ואתה בעצם נתקל באוכלוסייה שחיה שם, היא שונה בתכלית. כאילו, זה עדיין מפחיד, אם כי קצת פחות, ואתה כאילו, ההרגשה היא שאתה משחק בחיילים, בזמן שחיים שלמים מתנהלים מסביב, החנויות פתוחות והילדים מתרוצצים, והחיים ממש מתרחשים שם. ויש משהו, יש מושג בצבא שנקרא לפתוח זיג. זה אומר שאם אתה מגיע לפינה, אז אתה מצמיד את הקנה של הנשק ופותח ככה לאט לאט, כדי שאם מישהו מחכה לך בצד השני, אז אתה מוכן לקראתו. ואני זוכר שפתחתי שם זיג ופותחים אותו ככה מהר, ופתאום אני מוצא את עצמי עם הקנה מול ילד בן 4, אולי 5, ילד קטן. והוא עומד מולי כולו בשוק, והוא ככה, הוא עזב את מה שהיה לו ביד, והוא הסתכל עליי ככה, הוא נורא פחד, כי אני מכוון אליו נשק. וגם אני פתאום ככה התנערתי מהמקום שבו אני נמצא רגע, ואני אומר, מה, אני מכוון פה נשק על ילד, כאילו, ילד קטן, ילד שעוד לא מבין, ואתה רואה לו את הפחד בעיניים, וזה קשה, זה מחלחל, ואני חושב שבאותו רגע הבנתי לאיזה מקום הגעתי, ומה, אולי עוד לא כך הבנתי מה אנחנו עושים פה, אבל הבנתי איזה מציאות אנחנו יוצרים שם, שזה מאוד עצוב. אפשר לומר בגדול יותר, שלחברון הגעתי, לצבא בכלל, הגעתי עם דעות מהמרכז שמאלה קצת, אבל כי זה הדעות שקיבלתי מהבית, לא ידעתי למה. ואחרי חברון ידעתי בדיוק למה. ידעתי בדיוק למה אני חושב שככה וככה, ובדיוק למה אני חושב שככה וככה, כי יש פה אוכלוסייה שלמה שדורכים עליה ומשתינים עליה ומחרבנים עליה בקשת, וזה עצוב.